Mr. Pitts.
Awesome. How are you, Brett?
I'm good. We are here for our industry update. It is May 23rd. We're in the peak of the spring market, and I don't know. All things crazy as it sounds, it feels pretty good. You?
I think we're humming along nicely. I mean, there's a lot of chaos in the news and the media, and it looks like our agents are still staying busy. So it's still good times.
Perfect. Well, let's jump in and see if the numbers say the same. So let's start. Fulton County has 729 active listings this morning. If I click this, there were 732 last week, but that's still pretty constant. We still got to go back to end of October last year to get that same level of inventory. But here's what I want to be real careful about is I want to make sure we're not selling less houses. So if you look at this pending and this active under contract, we went from 161 a month ago, and we've dropped down to the 120 range in the active under contract. So it certainly looks like that's come down a little bit. But if you look in this pending level, we went from 440 to 410 to 409, 413. Kind of looks like it's holding, right? But the one that really matters is this number here, is the close. How many houses closed over the last 7 days? Closed 466. So I always use the analogy of how many signs we're putting in the yard versus how many signs we're taking out of the yard. And if you're looking at that analogy, you're comparing active listings compared to closings, right? And it's not that we're selling less houses right now. We're actually kind of selling more in this scenario. You can see the yellow line is the closed houses. And if I'm just kind of looking at Fulton County in big picture, there's 466 this week. Last week was 474. And you got to go all the way back to last year to even find a peak where we sold more houses in a 7-day period. So you're going to hear predictions that we're selling less houses. I'm not showing that here in Fulton County. I'm showing higher inventory, high sales closing. So that's a good number, right? If I get to DeKalb, same kind of story, high inventory number at 451 active listings, but our closings are at that 284. We're high. So it's not that we're selling any less houses. So maybe we're a little insulated. That's good. Active under contract, pretty consistent. Pending, pretty consistent. High active inventory, high closings, good sign there. Jumping to Cobb, look at this inventory in Cobb County. It's just climbed and climbed and climbed. 480 active listings in Cobb County. And then if I'm checking it against closings, 315 closings. Last time we were over 3 was in March, just barely. I don't think we've got a peak. Maybe back in October where we did the same number of closings in a 7-day period, but inventory isn't anywhere close to where it was today compared to since we've been tracking. So just kind of running through the others, high active inventory in Gwinnett, closings and pendings are holding in that 300 range, a little over 300. You jump over to Cherokee County, same deal, high active inventory, closings and pendings holding high. I don't know. I think that sounds like good prediction all the way around. What do you make?
I'd agree. I mean, that's the direction we're hoping we would head, especially going in spring, especially with interest rate hikes. And I love seeing the list and inventory followed by closings at a higher pace. I think it's so important as the size of the sales volume keeps increasing and the GCI keeps increasing with agents that we don't forget about units.
Yes.
You've been preaching that for weeks now, but units are where we can really measure how we're doing throughout the year. and if we're keeping on track versus the GCI, which is naturally going up right now, right? And
Yep.
your conversation here is so important when tracking and measuring how this year is going for yourself. Keep up with the units. Keep up with the units.
The other thing we should keep our eye on are these withdrawals and expireds. So in Fulton County, there was actually quite a few more withdrawals, but expireds went down. So I kind of see these as balancing each other out.
Yeah.
DeKalb, withdrawn and expireds, pretty consistent, no spikes. Cobb County, pretty consistent, except for withdrawals a little bit higher.
What do you think those withdrawals are from? Is it from, you think sellers are just, they can't get their arms around the changes here?
Well, I think there's an expectation from sellers that you're going to sell their house in 2 days. And when their house doesn't sell for their aggressive price in 2 weeks, they panic, right? And I think it's a little bit of, oh, well, if we can't get our price, we'll bow out early. I'm not going to sell for a discount, right? Like, so I think there's an expectation that might not be being set at the listing table at the highest level that might be creating a little bit extra, but certainly there's a little spike in the withdrawals, right? Gwinnett County, little spike in the withdrawals, expireds are the same. So they might also, remember, we're going into a holiday weekend. People might be taking it off before the holiday weekend, or if their house didn't sell once school got out. You know, there's some interesting factors that could be playing a role in that. Honestly, like I said, 1 week, I don't get too excited over 1 week's worth of data. If it starts to be 2 and 3 weeks, then I start to be curious. Make sense? All right. Anything else on the numbers? Let's roll.
Could you show Douglas County real quick, please?
I'm happy to. So Douglas County is holding high at 83 active inventory. It's been holding there for quite a while, but the closings came way up. They were in the low 50, under 50, and then they went down to 27, but hit 72 and 65 over the last 2 weeks. So that's a good sign for Douglas County, absolutely. And by the way, if you go to the website, therealestatestats.com, it takes you directly to this spreadsheet. So you can click on any county you want. All right, Matt.
The real estate stats?
The THE realestatestats.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the US economy is in a better position than most countries despite recession risk. I think we've been pretty proud of our US economy for a very long time. And I think the world is certainly going through some recessionary conversations. We're not the only country struggling with inflation and things like that. However, I just think the reason I pulled this article out is I think the US government, right or wrong, depending on the day, does a pretty good job of keeping our economy at the top in the world of economies. And one of the things, I'm gonna give you an opinion that I think is important to understand is as we're talking about all these inflation and how we think inflation is a risk to democracy, on the global scale, if you think of countries that lost control of their currency, Venezuela was one of the most recent examples where their currency just lost its value. The deal with currency and economy is the government's got to have some levers to pull to protect its currency so that an economy can stay protected. Well, our government is very in tune with keeping our currency value protected. That doesn't mean we don't deal with inflation or deflation or recessionary periods, but at the end of the day, we're a pretty good economy with the way the government protects our currency And at times that's highly debated, right? And I'm not getting into those debates, but I just think you got to understand, like, currency without a government behind it protecting it can get really deflated or really inflated really quickly. I'll give you a crazy opinion. Cryptocurrency doesn't have a government behind it protecting its value. So you see it swinging huge right now. I'm going to leave that there. That's my opinion. All right, moving on. The Atlanta housing market, the bidding wars are declining. So here's what you need to understand is, are we still in a hot real estate market? Yes. At one point in time, listing, you might have got 60 offers and it was just madness. But you're not getting those same 60 offers today. You're getting 2 to 5 offers today. And obviously it depends on the property. But here's the thing, it's something to take notice of is where the bidding wars are declining, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. So here's an interesting statistic. So the number of Atlanta listings that drew multiple offers fell to 56% last month, according to data from one of our competitors, Redfin. And this was a decline from 66% in March and 71% a year ago. Now, what does that tell you? Now, there's a generalization on this, meaning all price points. So low price point's going to get a lot of multiple offers, high price point, maybe not.
I also think we have to rethink as agents, advising buyers to offer over ask and option money and things like that, in certain markets that are hot, absolutely, you may have to do that. But that it used to be across the board for the last, year or so, but that might not be the case now. You may be able to just offer a couple thousand over and still get the deal.
Yeah. And I would also caution you that a savvy listing agent may give off the perception that it's still the same and it may not be under the surface.
Right.
So you got to be skilled here. Go ahead.
Could I just ask, where did Redfin get these numbers?
They're using their data somehow. And listen, I don't know specifically where they got it from, but I can tell you they're probably using some kind of metric from their own data, if that makes sense.
I see. So when I saw this article when it came out, and that was the thing I thought is, well, who has the way to know how many properties are getting multiple offers other than if we see it sold in 3 days, then we know that there were multiple offers. But other than that,
I would say number of days on market, number of properties that sold for over asking price versus properties that sold for a discount of asking price.
That makes sense. So they're just extrapolating it from the results of the market.
Yeah. And here's what I would tell you is, don't get caught up in the exact percentages, get caught up in the message behind the article saying, hey, we know that it's slowing down from a velocity standpoint on the multiple offer scenario. And I'm on a listing side. I'm going to use that information to have a reality conversation with my seller. I'm on the buy side. I'm going to use it for prospecting buyers to give them encouragement to get back into the game. And 2, I'm going to know that as my negotiations are going on, saying, yeah, maybe not, right? Like, and like I said, the shrewd listing agent, that's their jobs to get the most money for their seller, is going to make it seem like that it's just that way.
So could I ask a question about that? Because I had specifically this weekend, I really felt like the selling agent was sort of bluffing about what she had. And I just want to ask the other agents on the call, do you, when do you ask them to show you the offer that they said is more than yours? In what case do you do that? Because you don't want to be bluffed into telling your people to offer more when the agent says, oh, these are the other offers are more than yours.
The only thing that I know, Terry, and I'll open it up to anybody on the call, and I don't like escalation clauses, but I do know to be true to the letter of the clause is they have to provide documentation to create the escalation. But outside of an escalation, I don't think there's any obligation for them to show you.
Right. Anybody
Terry,
else?
Terry, why would somebody, I mean, if you've got a higher offer, and you're saying, are they they need to prove that they've got a higher offer? I mean, if you've got the higher offer, I know there's a lot of different things that go on an offer, but remember that a seller does not have to accept an offer based on price. It's the whole, there may be better terms or something, so they don't have to prove it to you. They just went with the offer that made more sense to them.
Well, in this case, we were bringing it back up because we didn't.
Yeah.
So, but,
Well,
and
if you were bringing a backup, then you would put in there probably an escalation clause to say that you want to be able to see that offer. A lot of times when you're doing backup, the seller is going to say, they're going to kind of dictate to you what they want, but the seller's not obligated to tell you that. And by the way, if you're a listing agent, confidentiality, you're not supposed to tell the other agent that you've got a higher offer unless that seller has given you permission to do so.
thank you. So just go ahead and put an escalation, and that way they have to show me.
Here's what I'm going to say to you guys. It's just like poker. There is a strategy to probability. There's a strategy to positioning. There's a strategy to how you carry yourself. And there's people that are good at it, and there's people that are not so great at it. And unfortunately, negotiation in any sales or any business has that aspect to it, and you just got to learn to get good at it. And you got to help your people understand when to call the bluff and when to play the bluff, right? And there's no, you could call it shrewd, but at the end of the day, that's negotiation, right? There's people that are just that way.
Right. Right. And you just have a gut feeling that you know what's going on there,
Yep. All right. So bidding wars in Atlanta's housing market declines. The next article says that sweet relief, Atlanta home supply increases for the first time since pandemic. We showed you that number on the data points, but the question is, so what? What do you do with it? Matt, what are you telling your agents in Cobb County to do with this information?
It's a great question. I think, getting back to the opportunity of the current market and whether we take advantage of it or we sit back and let it happen to us, this is a good sign. Home supply increasing. I'm re-engaging buyers I've had for the last year at this point because the market is starting to turn and look a little different. What educational conversations are you having with them? And then two, it's back to the activities that produce the units. You may have to ramp up. You will have to ramp up what you've been doing the last few years to get similar results. And that's the two conversations we're having constantly. But if you don't use this to educate your clients, we're doing them a disservice. And being shrewd and having this information, as you said, can help craft the current market situations, which is this is all happening pretty fast if you look at the data points.
There you go. I'm going to pull something up that's not on script here. Hold on just a second. Say something smart, Matt.
Uh-oh, not on script. What are we going to do? There's a question. I'll read the question. Do you think there will be a lot of foreclosures? Okay, Brett, I'll kind of start at this one and you can correct me if you have a different opinion. I honestly don't think there's going to be a ton of foreclosures that happen. There's a great amount of equity. Job growth is still good. There's plenty of jobs to be had in our market, especially. The demand is still there. And again, people have tons of equity in their home. What I would mention, and Brett and I've talked about this on this call before, but I got mine yesterday on 2 properties, which is the old property tax bill that came out. And it was about 35% higher than it was 2 years ago. And that can greatly impact your monthly payment, greatly impact, which could throw people for a loop. But I still don't see that going to foreclosure, Brett. I think that's still an opportunity. They can sell their house and move out, right?
I think your foreclosures are going to show up 9 months, a year from now. I don't think there's going to be like this crazy abundance of foreclosures. But I think we're going to see an increase in foreclosure. I mean, like, what was the statistic? Like 0.5% were foreclosures over the last couple of years.
0.0.
Yeah, you're going to see that come up a couple points. Do I think we're going to see 10% foreclosures or 5%? No, I think we might see 2% or something like that. And remember, nobody, period, should be foreclosed on right now if they're in relationship with a real estate agent that's consulting them. There is value in every house. Let me show this figure real quick. So one of the things we're talking about is these shifts and what happens. But what I want you to see is right now we're in like this crazy acute seller's market, right? Like this arrow is almost side, like straight up left, going left here. But what happens is when the pendulum starts to shift, it starts really slow and it speeds up as it comes this direction. So you got to know that right now you don't feel much, but we're starting to see some signs of it slowing down where inventory is building, which is that we think is a good thing. We haven't seen any homes sold less. We haven't seen any more expired listings. We haven't seen any prices slow down yet. The only thing we're seeing is interest rates going up. So I don't think this pendulum's moving at this point in time, but we're keeping our eye on it. And just know it doesn't move, it builds up speed as it happens, and it happens pretty quickly. So it's just something to keep your eye on. And that's why we certainly go through these industry updates day in and day out, week over week. All right. Then home sales, home building headed for a slowdown. This is what Fannie Mae says. Now I'm going to caution you. I don't know that this article, which is nationwide, necessarily is exactly the reality we're going to get. But here's what they're saying. Not until next year will we see a deceleration in home price growth, with some regions seeing price declines. I don't think that's us, guys. I don't see us having a price decline. I could see a less desirable part of the country that doesn't have the same amount of buyer demand that we have in Metro Atlanta, having to sell at a discounted price to get homes sold. And I don't want to pick a city in case somebody's like from there, but you can imagine where those parts of the country are, right? It's not going to necessarily be us. After the biggest surge in mortgage rates in 40 years, homes are now less affordable. We understand that. They think this fact will dent home sales, which I'm keeping our eye on it. We're watching it. We haven't seen home sales come down. It will come down at some point, guys. It will. And it'll cool the pace of home building. This is a bigger factor for us. Your new construction is going to slow down. It's just they're scared. They don't want to get caught with inventory on the ground and the market shifting. So they're being very cautious about new construction. And remember, what's the timeline of a new construction? 9 months, 12 months these days? What's the timeline of a residential resale? 30 days. So the risk is totally different in the new construction world than it is in the residential resale. However, not until next year do they expect a deceleration in home price growth, meaning we've been having 20% price appreciation slow down to 5% or 4%, which is pretty doggone okay and normal, right? This is what they're forecasting. New construction, existing homes, they're expecting us to be 10% off of this. And then they're expecting a little bit more decline in 2023. Nationwide, I'm not seeing it in Atlanta. Make sense? And then the other thing, which I find interesting, is this article says, what's next after housing cools down? This economist has an idea. In a shifting market, blah, blah, blah. The number of homes sold in 2022 declines by something like 10%. It's what they're predicting across nationwide. As housing demand weakens, prices don't fall nationwide, but price hikes do slow, dropping from 20% to perhaps 5%. So here's, if you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, what you need to be prepared for is a reality conversation with your consumers that this double-digit price appreciation ain't gonna last forever. But what they can count on is 4 to 5% a year. And that's what's important to understand, which is not bad, guys. That's the 50-year trend line. But we've been so used to this extra price appreciation. They're going to have a little bit of a letdown when the value of their house slows down to a normal climb. And you just got to be prepared with scripts and dialogues and objections and all the above. Does that make sense? Matt, add something.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think just going back to, this is what the US government wants, 4% to 5% growth. This is exactly according to their plan. This is what they put everything in place to do. And you go back to, why do people want to buy and sell real estate? What's their reason to? Because you have data points on everything that shows now's a great time to buy, now's a great time to sell. What is the reason you're looking to do so? And if you have these data points there's no reason either way not to buy or sell at this point if you need to.
There you go. All right, one other conversation I want to have, that I don't have an article to back this up, but I need y'all to understand that there are institutional money that's out there that plays in the real estate world. And forever it was in commercial real estate. And then at some point in time, it got into hard money, and then it got into iBuyers. So you actually saw a lot of institutional money show up in the iBuyer world. So the iBuyer world goes to the residential resale market and pulls inventory out and buys it and holds it. And we're probably not going to see that real estate for a long period of time. So what that institutional money is starting to do is it's starting to shift again. And what it's shifting to is buying land, developing it, building houses, and building them for rent. And that new construction will never come back to resale. It'll just be forever owned by these institutional investors. It's important to understand, because Gary Keller at Family Reunion said, hey, what was the funny part about the shirts? Buy dirt. So the future is in this dirt and development for residential rental long-term. Well, I think that's an interesting thing. One, we need to know what's going on. Two, It's just another reason to understand why dirt is very valuable. 3, it gets them out of our MLS. And it gets them away from the onesies and twosies of iBuyers, and it gets them more into development, which puts them kind of more back on the commercial side. This is what I see as a trend. Do I have a bunch of articles and data to show you this? No, but trust me when I'm telling you this is happening, and it's going to be a big deal going forward. There's going to be whole neighborhoods built that never sold. Just FYI. Last thing that I just wanted to pull up here is there's a development that is in Henry County that they just acquired 1,000 lots called Symphony Park. Blue River Development Company is going in and developing this entire thing. I think you're going to see a lot more development in parts of the city that aren't your typical parts of the city that they're developing tracts of land, because land's getting expensive, and this is where they want to be in the future, these big developments. So this is down in Henry County, Blue River Development, and it's certainly an article about a new construction, new development. And I think that developers are going to get aggressive around land and what they're doing with it. So any questions? I know we're a hair over time. Matt, you've been a great voice of reason on here.
Spot on, and that's already happening. I think a lot of agents have noticed that as well. This is happening now.
Yeah.
And it's only going to increase. So.
Moving fast, guys. Happy Monday.